Hi, welcome to another episode of Talking with Docs. I'm Dr. Brad Wiening.
And I'm Dr. Paul Zalzal.
Today, Paul, we have a very interesting topic, one that is really important to me and important to you too, and important to lots of people nowadays. Things are really changing. So kind of the general question we're asking is if you're considering eating more plants in your diet, maybe converting a little bit away from the traditional Western diet, here are two documentaries that I think you should watch that really help change my viewpoint on this kind of stuff.
Full disclosure, I have not seen either of them, so I'm just as interested in this as our viewers are, if you are. And
full disclosure, I've watched them multiple times each, and probably they're the first two that I ever watched and primarily changed the way that I ate. And I've been plant-based since December of 2018, I think now, like 3.5 years, I think.
That's impressive.
It goes fast.
I definitely have moved away from meat. I still eat some meat. I still eat dairy.
Obviously, chicken wings. The faithful knows you like chicken wings.
Until you can grow a chicken wing on a plant. I'm still a omnivore, but definitely have gone primarily towards plants.
You're what we call a flexitarian.
Flexitarian.
Yeah,
really?
So it's a real thing. It's a real term where you say, "Hey, I'm trying to eat more plants, but I'm not rigid about it." And same thing for me. Like it's not a religion. It's not like a strong-held like moral belief necessarily. It's just about making healthy choices. And I think any change that people can make probably are going to help them. So
it's kind of the thing about Netflix specials. There's so many out there that change your life.
Yes.
That's why I don't watch them. I like my life.
Sure.
If I see one of those, I steer away from them. But if you are interested in...
Yes. So the first one, actually, nice segue, is the first one is on Netflix. And the title of it's called What the Health. It's by a pretty successful writer and director, Kip Anderson, who actually is also responsible for two movies. You may have heard the titles of Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy. Just about a lot of the controversies and things that people don't know about big agriculture of cows as well as the sea.
Is it like farming fish or strictly the sea?
So it's the sea in general. So farming fish as well as wild caught fish and the damage that it does to the environment as well as the effects it has on your health and that kind of stuff. Just a curious guy who's really dug deep, talked to experts and done some research into maybe why we're not getting all the exact information that's out there. So What the Health, so it's available on Netflix. And I think what he does a nice job of is first explains kind of how food affects our health. He talks to multiple medical experts. Then he also talks about why we believe what we believe. Like why in like the 70s and 80s, why did we think that fat was like so evil? And why was there a big low fat revolution? And what they did is they took out all the fat and they filled it full of sugar. There's some really interesting stuff, not to be a spoiler, but it's because a bunch of researchers that were not totally honest and were involved with big sugar, which is a really powerful board and driving power to say, hey, anything to get the attention away from sugar, so let's make fat the villain. So What the Health, Kip Anderson, definitely worth a good watch.
And we've talked about that before when researchers are not, as you put it, totally honest.
Yes.
But what it really is bias. We call it bias. So if you have a researcher publishing a paper and they are funded by a company that has interests in the outcomes of that paper, then we call that bias. So when you read those papers, you have to be very careful about how to interpret them. And I think that's what has upset a lot of people.
And particularly back in the day, you didn't have to disclose your involvement. So now if you're giving a talk at a conference or writing a paper, you actually have to say, I have no conflicts of interest, or I potentially do. So say, I work for company A and we're talking about company A's implants and I said they're amazing. That's you have to say, hey, full disclosure, I work for them, so I have a conflict of interest.
Yeah, so don't believe anything I say. That's what you're implying.
People get up, they say, I'm going to go grab a snack during this talk.
Here's a good coffee break.
Yeah.
Go grab a plant.
Yeah. So that's the first one. So What the Health is the first one. The second one is similar kind of strategy. It's the writer-director is Lee Fulkerson, and it's called Forks Over Knives. It's actually available on their website. We will provide a link in the bottom, and actually it's available to watch for free on their channel. And it talks about a guy who, same thing, did a bunch of research, talked to a bunch of scientists, actually talked to a bunch of patients who were involved in changing their lifestyles to eat more plants, become plant-based eaters, and reversed a lot of their medical conditions. There are two doctors in Maryland who, this is how they help their patients. They actually shop with them. They go to their houses and they cook with them.
No, yeah?
And they say, let's get you off all your medication, whether it's diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease. So very, very interesting, compelling stuff. And obviously, they're gonna take the most successful patients, right? When you do a movie like this, even this movie, even though it's not selling you anything per se, it is selling you like a philosophy, but they're not getting rich from like a product that they're selling you necessarily, but I think if they had some people who did the diet and obviously didn't lose the weight or didn't get off the medication or did worse, they're probably not going to feature that person in the movie. So same thing, little bit of grain of salt. But Forks Over Knives, very, very interesting, and I think compelling stuff for people that are saying, you know what, I feel like maybe my life could be a little healthier. I'm not happy with where I'm going.
Are you implying you don't need a knife to eat plants?
Well, and I thought that was a funny title. So I think the thought is that you need a knife to cut meat typically. So it's,
you got it
stereotypical.
You're gonna chomp on your asparagus whole. You got that?
You just nibble it. You fork it at the end and just kind of nibble it up. No, or
I
like
use
your
a
corn.
knife.
Yeah, I think most people probably would still use knives. So, but I think it's more forky.
Right.
If
Yeah.
that's a word.
Not, but I get it.
Yeah. So
I'll
I
play
think
Scrabble with this guy.
yeah, you have to Google forky. But generally speaking, I think there is a trend, and the science supports it, that more plants and less animals probably is better for our general health.
Definitely. I mean, I think the evidence is overwhelming in that case.
Yes.
However, people balance that. You know, we're going to have some
Yes.
viewers that are like, forget it, I don't believe in any of that stuff. And we have
Yeah.
other viewers like, yeah, I have been vegan for 20 years and never felt better.
Yeah.
So, and you got both sides here. You
There you
got all the way vegan, you got light here.
Vegan meat. I think you're medium. Vegan medium.
I would
Plant-based
say,
medium.
yeah.
And I think the other key thing too is about plant-based diet is that it needs to be whole food. So you don't want deep fried chocolate covered asparagus. Like even if it's cocoa and it's not milk chocolate, you could argue that there are a lot of unhealthy plant foods. So primarily whole foods, not refined foods, not added sugar, not added salt. So not a lot of extra oil when you cook.
Yeah.
So like basic things that also, ironically, will help reduce some of the inflammation that you experience with arthritis. We haven't talked a lot about that. There is a video that's going to be coming about ways to reduce inflammation through what you eat. So,
And the other, Dr. Weening alluded to it, is the processed foods. The processed foods have been shown to be carcinogens, and we know that. That's your cold cuts and your processed meats and things like that. And unfortunately, there are some processed plant-based products too that
absolutely
you may think are healthy for you, but just because of the nature of the processing, they may not be as healthy for us. You have to be really careful with that.
Totally agree. I think if you're living on one of the name brand, fake meats, I'm not naming any of the brands because I think they're exciting alternatives as like your cheat or whatever, but I think in general that is not a healthy way to eat.
Full disclosure, I do eat some of those too,
so
but I understand that they're not healthy.
Yeah, it's not. You shouldn't eat it every day. But yeah, definitely check out those two. We're going to include that in the links in the description, as well as maybe some videos that didn't make the cut, because there are lots of them. So we'll include them there. And if you like this video, please like it. Subscribe to our channel.
And this is a topic where people
leave some comments.
Maybe excited about. Just leave some comments.
Don't get angry though. Carnivores, don't get angry.
You know what? If it makes you feel better to lash out, go for it in those comments. Whatever you want, just leave the comments in there. It'll generate some discussion. And you know what? You got to have discussion.
Discussion is important, and that's what it is. It's conversation. You don't have to do it. It's all about choice.
Something to think about.
Just like statins, you don't have to take them.
You know what?
No statins in the comments.
Don't get me started. That's what started me on the whole less meat was the cholesterol level going up, and I was, you know what I mean. Statins. I read all those papers and came out confused too. There's bias all over the place, but
sure.
Anyways, the blood work sort of is what I have to go by.
Yes.
So there you go. Remember, you are in charge of what you eat and therefore your own health.
We'll see you next time.